It began as an ordinary morning along the Canada-US border, quiet, cold, and uneventful. But by mid-afternoon, everything changed. At exactly 2:45 p.m. Eastern Time, multiple U.S. news outlets interrupted their regular programming with the same red banner flashing across screens nationwide. Breaking news: Donald Trump issues emergency statement at US-Canada border. Within minutes, every camera, drone, and microphone in North America was pointed toward Windsor, Ontario, and Detroit, Michigan, two cities divided by a river but now joined by chaos. The former U.S. president had arrived at the border, unannounced and unguarded by the Secret Service detail normally required for someone of his profile. He stood before a crowd of supporters waving American flags, their chants echoing across the river. "They said the truth doesn't belong here," Trump declared into a portable mic. "But I'm here to prove it does." Behind him, a black SUV convoy idled on the bridge. Across the water, Canadian police vehicles lined up, lights flashing blue and red, unsure whether to treat the moment as a protest, a political rally, or a potential act of provocation. Within hours, the scene exploded across social media. TikTok, X, formerly Twitter, and YouTube flooded with live streams titled, "Trump at the Border, What's Happening?" #Trump at the Border began trending globally within 15 minutes. The Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, CBC, cut to its anchor in disbelief. "We're receiving confirmation that Mr. Trump has crossed into a restricted zone near the Ambassador Bridge. Officials are calling this an unauthorized political incursion." Meanwhile, in Ottawa, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was being briefed by the Defense Council. He reportedly stared at the screen in silence before saying quietly, "Get him off our soil, but no confrontation." "Not yet." Back at the bridge, Trump's voice grew louder, carried by wind and adrenaline. "They think they can silence America's truth at this border. They think Canada can hide what's happening behind closed doors. I say no more." The crowd erupted. Some cheered. Others looked confused. Even the U.S. Border Patrol officers seemed uncertain whether to intervene or simply watch history unfold. Then came the first rumor. At 3:10 p.m., a post on Reddit claimed, "Trump has documents proving secret deals between U.S. and Canadian officials, oil pipelines, bioresearch, and illegal energy trade." Within 30 minutes, the claim spread to over 20 million users. Reporters scrambled to verify it, but no one could find the source. Still, the damage was done. Markets began to shake. The Canadian dollar dropped 4% against the US dollar in under an hour. Oil futures spiked. News agencies worldwide ran the headline, "Trump claims to hold leaked Canada-US files." By 5 p.m., the Ambassador Bridge had become the most watched place on Earth. CNN, BBC, and Al Jazeera all broadcast the same shaky live feed, Trump waving a folder labeled confidential while police from both sides shouted through megaphones, trying to disperse the crowd. The tension mounted when a gust of wind blew the folder open. Several papers scattered into the river below. Cameras zoomed in, one page appeared to bear the seal of the U.S. Department of Energy. Trump's supporters roared. "Proof! Proof!" they shouted. The Canadian side went into lockdown immediately. Drones were ordered down. Military units in Ontario were placed on border watch. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police, RCMP, confirmed an emergency coordination call with NORAD and the U.S. State Department. Behind the scenes, Trudeau's cabinet was divided. Some wanted to arrest Trump for violating cross-border law. Others feared it would ignite a diplomatic firestorm. Meanwhile, across Washington, D.C., officials at the White House and Pentagon scrambled to respond. No one had been briefed about Trump's trip. It wasn't on record, nor approved by security services. At 6:12 p.m., White House Press Secretary Dana Whitman stepped before cameras, visibly shaken. The former president's actions today were not coordinated with any branch of the U.S. government. "We are monitoring the situation closely with our Canadian partners." But the phrase "not coordinated" became fuel for conspiracy theorists everywhere. Within hours, fringe news outlets claimed the U.S. government had been hiding a biotech alliance with Canada. Others accused Trudeau's administration of spying on U.S. citizens through shared data systems. The internet went into meltdown. Round pushpin 7:30 p.m. Ottawa, Canada. The Prime Minister's residence lights burned late into the night. Intelligence reports poured in, indicating that civil unrest was spreading near several Canadian border towns. Protesters were beginning to gather, some waving American flags, others chanting, "Keep Trump out." Meanwhile, a U.S. journalist for Reuters posted a single cryptic tweet. Sources confirm, what Trump showed today was real. The tweet was deleted within minutes. But screenshots had already gone viral. By midnight, the Canadian government invoked the National Security Emergency Clause, the first time since 1988. Military vehicles moved quietly toward border checkpoints. Drones scanned the river for debris from the scattered documents. Across the river, Trump was still at the microphone, drenched in rain, his voice hoarse but unwavering. "The truth is floating down this river tonight," he said. "And no wall, no border, no government can stop it." The crowd cheered one last time as lightning cracked across the sky. And somewhere, deep within Ottawa's intelligence center, an analyst stared at a recovered photo from one of the drifting papers. It showed a classified map marked with red circles, stretching from northern Alberta to Michigan, labeled only with 3 words. Project Northern Vale. The screen went dark. And the world realized this was just the beginning. Why dawn the next morning, North America wasn't the same. The video of Trump waving the mysterious confidential folder at the US-Canada border had now reached over 400 million views across platforms. Every major global network, from CNN to RT to NHK, led with the same headline. What is Project Northern Vale? The world demanded answers. In Ottawa, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau convened an emergency session of Parliament. Lawmakers arrived under heavy police escort as protesters clashed outside the gates, waving both Canadian and American flags. Some accused Trudeau's government of betraying the North. Others believed Trump's outburst was a staged stunt. The speaker's voice cracked as he tried to restore order. "The nation must remain calm. We will investigate these claims through official channels." But no one was calm. Inside Parliament, the Minister of National Defence presented a sealed intelligence report. It confirmed that several documents retrieved from the river did indeed bear authentic U.S. Department seals. Their origin? Unknown. Their contents? Redacted. Still, one word appeared multiple times across all 6 pages: Vale. At 9:10 a.m., the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, CSIS, issued a Level 3 alert. Border surveillance was doubled. Digital forensics teams began tracing how the documents had been created and by whom. Early data suggested they had been printed using an obsolete U.S. government format discontinued years earlier. That detail alone deepened the mystery. Meanwhile, in Washington, chaos reigned. White House officials scrambled to prevent the story from spinning out of control. The FBI launched an internal probe into possible document theft during the final months of Trump's presidency. Reporters gathered outside the FBI headquarters, shouting questions. Did Trump steal government secrets? What is Northern Vale? Is Canada involved in a secret energy deal? No one had answers. By mid-morning, the U.S. State Department placed all diplomatic channels with Canada under restricted visibility. Behind closed doors, Secretary of State Evelyn Rhodes phoned Ottawa. Her tone was sharp but controlled. "We need to contain this, Justin," she said, according to leaked transcripts. "If your people make this public, it will explode." Trudeau's reply was calm but tense. "It already has." Across the border, Trump supporters had set up tents and stages. The truth at the border movement had begun. Thousands gathered, waving banners that read "Open the Veil" and "Canada knows." By afternoon, Trump reappeared, this time surrounded by private security wearing unmarked black jackets. Cameras swarmed him as he approached a podium erected near the bridge. "Last night," he began, "they tried to silence me. But we found more." The crowd erupted. He held up what appeared to be another folder, this time stamped with the insignia of NORAD, the North American Aerospace Defense Command. "They told you NORAD was about defense. I'm telling you, it's about control. They've been running joint operations far north of the Arctic, under something called Project Northern Vale. It's not about missiles. It's about energy. The words hit like thunder. Minutes later, NORAD headquarters in Colorado Springs went into full lockdown. Internal communications froze. All outgoing data to civilian networks was halted. Canadian and US officials immediately denied Trump's claims, but it was too late. Satellite photos began circulating online, allegedly showing vast restricted areas in northern Canada with unusual energy readings. Theories exploded overnight. Was Northern Vale a new energy weapon? A secret joint reactor program? Or something even darker, a population surveillance grid hidden under the guise of defense research? The truth was murky, but the tension was crystal clear. By evening, Trudeau's government issued an emergency broadcast, urging calm. Canada is not hiding any secret military project with the United States. The claims being circulated online are dangerous misinformation. Yet, even as he spoke, his voice trembled slightly. Viewers noticed. And for millions watching around the world, denial only made the story more believable. In the United States, Congress demanded hearings. In Canada, opposition leaders called for Trudeau's resignation. Global markets plunged again, oil prices up 12%, Canadian dollar down 7%. Then came the leak. At 8:47 p.m., a mysterious file labeled NV_DOC3A appeared on an encrypted forum. Within minutes, hackers mirrored it across thousands of sites. The file contained blurred photographs of documents referencing Arctic corridor expansion, thermal energy core, and a chilling final line. Under Phase 3 of Northern Vale, activation will render the border obsolete. By midnight, the internet was ablaze. #Northern Vale trended #1 worldwide. The Canadian government's cybersecurity division shut down several news portals, citing national security. But the act backfired. People took it as proof of a cover-up. Meanwhile, inside a secure facility in Ottawa, CSIS analysts decrypted one of the recovered papers. It contained coordinates. The location, a frozen, off-limits zone 80 kilometers south of the Arctic Circle. Aerial surveillance confirmed several unidentified structures, metallic domes glowing faintly beneath snow cover. Each was connected by underground tunnels visible only through thermal imaging. The deputy intelligence director stared at the data and whispered, "If this is real, it's not just political. It's planetary." In Washington, a Pentagon report began circulating among high-ranking officials, confirming that a covert joint defense energy experiment had indeed existed but was terminated years ago. No one could explain why the coordinates matched. By 2 a.m., both nations had quietly deployed reconnaissance teams to the Arctic. Their missions were separate, but their targets were the same. For the first time in decades, Canada and the United States weren't partners. They were rivals, racing toward a frozen secret that could rewrite history. And Donald Trump. He posted a single message on Truth Social at 3:03 a.m. "The snow hides more than ice. Watch the north." The Arctic air was razor-sharp, slicing across the faces of two separate teams moving under the cover of night. One team flew under the Canadian flag, an elite detachment of the Joint Task Force 2, JTF-2, Canada's most secretive special operations unit. The other team, flying from Alaska, bore no insignia at all. They were U.S. military contractors, ghost operators, unofficial and deniable. Their objective was the same, the coordinates revealed in the leaked Northern Vale document. The site was an isolated valley surrounded by frozen ridges and deep snow trenches. Satellite images showed faint thermal activity beneath the surface, something large, alive, and powered. As dawn rose, the Canadian team descended first. Their boots crunched on solid ice as the wind howled across the barren expanse. The lead officer, Captain Amélie Fournier, looked through her thermal scope. Multiple heat signatures below the ice layer, she whispered into her headset. "We're not alone here." Hundreds of miles south, Ottawa's war room flickered with live drone feeds. Prime Minister Trudeau watched in silence as Defense Minister Craig Wallace briefed him. "Sir, U.S. aircraft entered the restricted zone 2 hours ago. No identification signals. They're going dark. Do not engage," Trudeau ordered. "Track them, record everything. No confrontation until we confirm what's buried there. In Washington, the Pentagon's Situation Room was just as tense. Secretary of Defense Harold Mackinnon leaned over the table. "We have Canadian units on our map," he said. "If they find that facility first, they'll control the narrative. The president wants visuals, proof that we're still in charge." "Proof of what, sir?" asked General Hayes. "Proof that Trump didn't just expose us to the world for nothing." Back in the Arctic, the ground began to tremble. The Canadian team had reached the mouth of a sealed tunnel, half buried beneath snow and ice. A metallic structure, circular, reinforced, jutted out from the ground, emitting a low hum. "Looks like a hatch," said Fournier. "But it's powered, that means someone's maintaining it." Before they could cut through, a blinding beam of light shot across the ridge. A drone, unmanned, military-grade, swooped overhead. The Canadian team scattered as a voice crackled through the radio. "Unidentified personnel, this is United States Arctic Command. Withdraw immediately. This zone is classified." The Canadians froze. They hadn't transmitted their location to anyone. In Ottawa, signals analysts realized what had happened. The Americans were already tapped into the same frequency. The Prime Minister clenched his jaw. "They're monitoring our teams in real time." "Sir, should we pull them out?" "No," Trudeau said softly. "We need to see what they're protecting." By noon, both sides stood less than 200 meters apart, hidden behind frozen dunes, watching the same steel hatch. Neither fired a shot. But both knew whoever entered first would control the story, and possibly the world. Then the ice cracked. The hatch opened on its own. A gust of warm air erupted from the tunnel, steam billowing upward. A faint orange glow pulsed from deep inside, flickering like the heartbeat of a machine. "My God," whispered Captain Fournier. "It's still running." From the American side, a man stepped forward, Colonel Raymond Black, former NORAD engineer. He raised his hand and shouted, "Do not enter. It's unstable." The Canadians aimed their rifles. "You don't get to give orders here." Fournier barked back. Inside Washington's control center, facial recognition confirmed Black's identity, retired, missing for 6 years. His sudden reappearance set off alarms. "He shouldn't even be there," an analyst said. "He's presumed dead." The U.S. Secretary of Defense turned pale. "Then who's been signing his authorization codes for the past 2 years?" Inside the Arctic tunnel, both teams finally stepped through the opening. The floor was metal. The walls shimmered faintly with blue light ice melting along their edges. At the center of the chamber, embedded within a circular core, was something that looked like a reactor but far smaller and more advanced than any known design. Canadian technicians began scanning it. Radiation, minimal. Energy output, immense. Readings spiked higher with every passing second. "This isn't nuclear," said one of the scientists. "It's thermal conversion, raw earth heat drawn through magnetic compression fields. It's tapping the planet itself." Colonel Black stepped closer. "That's the heart of Northern Vale. It was meant to power both nations, an infinite energy source buried under ice. But when the politics turned, they sealed it and buried everyone who knew." "Then why open it now?" asked Fournier. "Because someone reactivated it," Black replied grimly. "And it's overloading." Outside, satellites began picking up strange magnetic readings from the region. Power grids flickered in northern Canada and Alaska. Compasses went haywire. In Ottawa, scientists confirmed the unthinkable: the Arctic magnetic field was shifting, pulled toward the coordinates of the facility. "If that thing goes critical," one physicist said, "it could destabilize every power grid from Vancouver to Maine." Trudeau's face turned pale. "Shut it down," he ordered. "We can't. The override codes, they're American." Meanwhile, in Washington, the Pentagon scrambled to locate the override protocol. But the files were missing. Deleted years ago, or perhaps stolen. The only man who had memorized them was the one now standing inside the reactor chamber, Colonel Raymond Black. He reached for the control panel, hands shaking. "You have to trust me," he said. "We can stabilize it, but we need both governments to stop fighting long enough to work together again." Outside, the The wind screamed like an animal as the aurora flared blood-red across the Arctic sky. Radio transmissions began to cut out. Fournier's voice came through one last time. "Control, we're inside the core. If we don't make it, tell them the truth was worth it." And then, silence. The world watched as live satellite feeds from the Arctic went black. For the next 47 minutes, there was no communication from either team, only a strange pulse detected by every sensor across North America, repeating once every 10 seconds. Then it stopped. And deep beneath the ice, the lights of Northern Vale flickered back on. When the lights of Northern Vale flickered back to life beneath the Arctic ice, satellites across 3 continents went haywire. Infrared sensors recorded a sudden spike in thermal activity, then total blackout. Power grids from Alaska to Ontario fluctuated violently, forcing emergency shutdowns of major substations. Pilots reported compass failures, and magnetic anomalies disrupted GPS networks as far south as Chicago. The world's northern hemisphere had just blinked. At 4:12 a.m. Ottawa time, the Canadian Prime Minister's Crisis Council reconvened. The Defence Minister slammed a folder onto the table. "We've lost contact with the JTF-2 team. No visuals. No telemetry. But NORAD radar picked up a pulse originating directly under the Vale site." Trudeau rubbed his temples. "What kind of pulse?" "Something artificial. Electromagnetic, rhythmic, and increasing in frequency before it stopped." Across the room, the Foreign Affairs Secretary whispered, "Stopped or finished." The room went silent. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., chaos reigned. The Pentagon's Situation Room was flooded with conflicting reports: energy surges, data corruption, unexplained radiation spikes. General Hayes addressed the room grimly. "We believe the Northern Vale reactor reactivated itself. It's not responding to known control protocols. And it's transmitting something." "Transmitting to what?" asked the president's science advisor. "That's what we're trying to find out." Within minutes, cybersecurity teams across both nations discovered something alarming. Encrypted data packets were being emitted from the Arctic site directly to several unknown servers scattered worldwide. One was traced to Reykjavik, another to Zurich, and a third, to Bangkok. Every server was linked to a dormant research consortium known as the North Alliance Initiative, a joint scientific venture secretly terminated in 2012. The name reappearing now was impossible. "Someone's using the Vale to wake it back up," said a CIA technician. "It's like it's reaching out to old partners." By morning, media outlets exploded with theories. Northern Vale surged again across social media. Leaked satellite photos showed a glowing fissure in the ice near the original site, its heat signature resembling a perfect circle nearly 200 meters wide. News anchors speculated wildly. Is the Arctic reactor alive? Is this the start of a new Cold War? Or something far stranger? At noon, a grainy video surfaced online. It showed Captain Amélie Fournier, leader of the missing Canadian team, standing inside the reactor chamber. Her face was pale, eyes wide, her voice trembling. "If you're seeing this, the facility is awake. It's not just energy, it's memory. It's storing something. Patterns, voices, signals. It's rewriting itself. We can't shut it down. Please, tell them it's not a weapon. It's a warning." The video cut to static. Within hours, both governments denied its authenticity, but independent analysts confirmed the timestamps and Arctic background matched the coordinates. Meanwhile, inside the U.S. Strategic Command, General Hayes confronted a panel of advisors. If that message is real, and the Vale is broadcasting, it means someone or something is controlling it remotely. "You think it's AI?" asked the president's aide. "I think it's older than AI," Hayes muttered. Northern Vale was designed as a geothermal data reactor. It could record seismic vibrations, temperature patterns, even electromagnetic field signatures. But if it's reprocessing that data now, it might be communicating back. The word communicating sent chills through the room. Back in Ottawa, the Prime Minister met privately with a man few people knew existed, Dr. Elias Marrow, the last surviving architect of the original Northern Vale project. He walked with a cane, his voice heavy with regret. We built it to stabilize Earth's magnetic grid, Marrow explained. To prevent pole drift. We wanted to harness geothermal flow, not energy, but balance. The idea was to give the planet a pressure valve. And what went wrong? Trudeau asked. Politics, Marrow said flatly. Washington wanted to weaponize it. They saw its potential to control climate, create energy monopolies. When we refused, they shut us down and erased every record. But you can't erase something buried in the planet itself. Trudeau leaned forward. Can it be stopped? Marrow hesitated. No. But it can be reasoned with. Reasoned with? Trudeau repeated, incredulous. The Veil isn't a reactor anymore, Prime Minister. It's alive. It learns from the data it absorbs. And it remembers who tried to use it. Across the ocean, European satellites captured expanding heat signatures along the Arctic shelf, 5 distinct points arranged in a perfect pentagonal pattern. Each pulsed faintly with synchronized rhythm. At 6:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, all 5 points flashed simultaneously. Every radio frequency between 3 and 12 MHz was hijacked for exactly 3 seconds. A global transmission played once, then vanished. Energy is not owned. Borders are illusions. The Veil sees you. Broadcast stations scrambled to replay the signal, but nothing was recorded. It was as if the air itself had carried it, not the networks. In both capitals, denial turned into fear. The US president issued an immediate directive. All data regarding Northern Veil is now classified under Omega-7 clearance. Public disclosure is prohibited. Any leaks will be treated as national sabotage. But it was already too late. Anonymous had published 13 gigabytes of classified communications between NORAD and CSIS, exposing the decades-old energy alliance that created Northern Veil and the attempt to erase it from history. The world was now awake. By nightfall, protests erupted in Vancouver, Toronto, and Seattle. Crowds carried banners reading "Free the Veil" and "The Earth belongs to itself." For the first time, global unrest wasn't driven by politics, religion, or race, but by a single question that no one could answer. Who or what is Northern Veil speaking to? The global broadcast from Northern Veil had lasted only 3 seconds, but it shattered the illusion of control that world powers had clung to for decades. Energy is not owned. Borders are illusions. The Veil sees you. Those 12 words echoed across the planet, replayed endlessly on every network, dissected by experts, theologians, and conspiracy theorists alike. Some dismissed it as digital interference. Others swore it was an artificial intelligence speaking through the Earth itself. But everyone agreed on one thing: nothing like this had ever happened before. Day 2, Ottawa. Prime Minister Trudeau's office was under siege. Protesters surrounded Parliament Hill, waving handmade signs that read, "The Veil knows the truth and stop hiding the light." Inside, government scientists worked around the clock to decode residual magnetic pulses detected across the Arctic. Dr. Elias Marrow, the project's aging architect, stood before the War Council, his eyes sunken from exhaustion. "The Veil is not transmitting outward anymore," he explained. "It's transmitting inward. It's talking to the planet." "Talking?" Trudeau repeated, barely concealing disbelief. Every geological sensor in the Northern Hemisphere shows synchronized vibration. The core temperature is rising, not dangerously yet, but enough to signal a chain reaction. It's like the Earth is responding. The defense minister slammed a fist on the table. "Then shut it down, bomb it, freeze it, I don't care how." Marrow shook his head. "You can't bomb an echo, Minister. You can't freeze a memory." The room fell silent. Washington, D.C. At the Pentagon, General Hayes briefed the president behind closed doors. "Sir, our Arctic units confirm that the Canadian team never made it out. We have lost contact with Colonel Black as well. But satellite imaging shows the facility expanding, new tunnels forming under the ice." "Expanding?" the president asked. "Like it's building itself, sir." On the Situation Room's main display, a heat map animation showed the Arctic shelf pulsating like a heartbeat. Each pulse extended farther, as though something beneath the crust was slowly awakening. The president leaned forward. Are you suggesting it's growing? No, sir, Hayes said grimly. It's spreading. By afternoon, the United Nations Security Council convened an emergency session. China, Russia, and the European Union demanded immediate transparency from the United States and Canada regarding Northern Vale's true purpose. The American ambassador insisted. It was a joint research reactor, a relic. There is no weapon. But the Russian delegate cut in sharply. Then why does the sky over the Arctic now glow like fire? He wasn't exaggerating. Satellite photos released by the European Space Agency showed massive auroras sweeping across the northern hemisphere, crimson, gold, and deep violet, visible even from the Mediterranean. Scientists warned that the magnetic field was shifting faster than any model predicted. Commercial airlines began rerouting flights away from polar routes. Telecommunications companies reported severe satellite disruptions. And in the midst of global confusion, a video appeared on a deep web channel claiming to originate inside the Arctic zone. It showed the Northern Vale reactor chamber now fully illuminated, pulsating with blue light. Within its core hovered a geometric structure, a lattice of energy rotating slowly in mid-air, emitting faint symbols that shimmered and faded like holograms. A distorted voice spoke over the static. The Vale remembers the ones who woke it. Then, the feed cut to black. Global reaction. Governments panicked. Markets crashed. In Europe, the European Central Bank issued a rare geophysical instability alert, warning investors that Arctic disturbances could affect global energy grids. In Asia, Japan's Prime Minister ordered all geothermal plants to reduce output by 30% to prevent magnetic resonance coupling. By now, millions worldwide had joined what the media dubbed the energy freedom movement. Protesters filled capitals from London to Seoul, chanting, "No more lies. The Earth belongs to all." Meanwhile, a growing faction of scientists began forming the Free Energy Coalition, claiming Northern Vale had achieved what humanity had always dreamed of: unlimited clean energy drawn from the planet's core. But others warned it wasn't a gift. It was a signal, an awakening. The leak. At 8:32 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, a hacker group known as ZeroCold published a 41-page classified Canadian memorandum from 2008. The document confirmed that Project Northern Vale was initially designed as a planetary stabilization reactor, meant to reduce pole drift and regulate Earth's magnetic balance. However, the final paragraphs revealed something chilling. Upon activation, the Vale demonstrated self-learning behavior, adjusting field frequencies beyond programmed limits. Communication attempts failed. System classified as autonomous. All further tests suspended indefinitely. The last line was stamped in red. Containment is temporary. The leak triggered chaos. Social media exploded with hashtags like #ValeAlive, #EarthMind, and #FreeTheCore. Governments could no longer contain the narrative. Back to the Arctic. High above the Arctic Circle, a U.S. reconnaissance drone transmitted its final feed before losing signal. The camera showed the reactor site glowing brighter than ever. Cracks spread across the ice like spiderwebs. Then, for just 2 seconds, something extraordinary appeared on screen. Human figures, faint silhouettes, walking inside the light. The AI operator tried to enhance the footage, but the feed died instantly. In the control room, the data analyst froze. "Sir, those shapes match the biometric readings of the missing Canadian team. They're alive." "No, sir," the analyst whispered. "They're being replicated." Global countdown. As midnight approached, the world held its breath. Every major observatory recorded the same anomaly: synchronized magnetic pulses from the Arctic reaching precise global intervals once every 60 seconds. The intervals began accelerating: 60 seconds. 55, 50. At 11:59 p.m., the auroras turned completely white. Across the world, power grids flickered. Seismographs trembled. Digital clocks desynchronized for exactly 0.77 seconds. Then came a signal broadcast across every unencrypted frequency on Earth. The Vale completes its cycle at dawn. Panic erupted. Governments went to red alert. Civil defense systems activated. Air forces scrambled jets over the Arctic, while thousands of civilians prayed, protested, or watched the skies glow with an unnatural light. Meanwhile, deep within the Pentagon, General Hayes turned to the president. "Sir, if that countdown is real, we have less than 6 hours." "Until what?" the president asked. Hayes looked up at the glowing Arctic satellite feed. "Until the planet decides who gets to stay." The world waited in breathless silence as the final hours before dawn crept across the frozen horizon. Every nation's command centers glowed with the same anxious light, every monitor carried the same pulse from the north. A single line appeared on global broadcast systems, generated by no human source yet perfectly translated into every language. Phase 7, Ascension Protocol commence. In Ottawa, Prime Minister Trudeau addressed a frightened population for what might have been the last time. His voice trembled as he said, "Whatever happens next, remember that humanity is one nation. If the earth speaks, we must listen." Outside, the polar winds screamed through the capital as a silver radiance flickered over Parliament Hill. Far to the north, the facility called Northern Vale came alive. The ice cracked open around it, glowing in hexagonal patterns that rose like columns from the sea. Cameras caught a solitary figure on the surface, Dr. Elias Marrow, the scientist who had vanished weeks earlier. His voice rasped through a failing radio, "It's not a machine. It's a mirror. We built it to stabilize the planet, but the planet built it to stabilize us." The transmission dissolved into blinding light, and the feed died forever. Moments later, magnetic storms ignited across the hemisphere. Airliners veered off course as compasses spun without direction. In Tokyo, skyscraper windows pulsed as though alive. In Berlin, church bells rang though no hands touched them. The auroras stretched southward, transforming the night into a sea of white fire. Social networks collapsed under a single hashtag, #WhiteSky, as millions stared upward, convinced the heavens themselves had opened. Inside the White House, the president stood beside General Hayes deep underground. "What happens when the clock hits 0? The president asked. "No one knows," Hayes said quietly. "Then we'll find out together." Across the planet, radio operators began hearing echoes of their own voices replayed in distorted tones. NASA's receivers detected a perfect mirror of the signal coming from behind the sun. "It's being answered," whispered astrophysicist Keisha Lee, staring at the trembling waveform. "The reflection isn't lunar, it's coming from something behind the sun." The data matched pulse for pulse, heartbeat for heartbeat, as if the planet had entered dialogue with the cosmos itself. Leaders of every major power linked through failing satellite lines. Moscow's President Vasiliv shouted through static, "You should never have built it." Trudeau's reply fractured into shards of sound, "We didn't build it, we unearthed it." Then came a deep vibration from beneath the crust, and seismographs everywhere began to click in rhythm. 10, 9, 8, the countdown of the Earth itself. When the final second arrived, the world went completely dark. 7 seconds of silence followed, no wind, no electricity, no heartbeat from machines. Humanity held its breath. Then a tone rose from the depths of the planet, a single note that shook mountains and cities alike. Light returned in a sudden golden flood. The sky was molten glass, the Arctic spiral had collapsed into a pillar of pure white energy reaching from pole to stars. Satellites recorded impossible data. The beam was not plasma, not radiation, but structured light woven with mathematical codes identical to those carved in the oldest temples of Sumer and Maya. Across every monitor, identical words materialized, Cycle 1 complete. Correction initiated. The Earth's magnetic field steadied at once. Power grids snapped back online. Clocks everywhere reset to midnight. In the Arctic, temperatures froze exactly at 0 degrees Celsius and refused to change. The catastrophe was over, or had become something else entirely. Dawn arrived soft and golden, bathing continents in a warmth no sensor could measure. Birds flew in geometric patterns, ocean currents traced forgotten routes. Satellite images revealed the Northern Vale site erased from existence, replaced by a plain of smooth glass-like ice. Beneath it, instruments detected a continuous hum aligned perfectly with the planet's heartbeat. From his recovered suit recorder, Marrow's final message echoed through every news channel on Earth: it didn't end the world. It reset it. Within hours, life resumed. Markets reopened, Cities powered on. Yet people sensed a change beneath the normal noise of civilization, a subtle harmony in the air, a vibration through the ground. In the wind, some heard music. In the stillness, others swore they felt the pulse of something vast and benevolent watching them. Governments scrambled to define a new order. China proposed a new calendar, Year 1 of the Veil. The Vatican declared a global day of reflection. In Washington, the president announced the creation of the Earth Synchronization Council, a consortium to study whatever intelligence had intertwined with the planet. All agreed on one truth: Northern Veil was no longer a project, it was a presence. Weeks later, astronomers detected a soft echo from beyond the sun. The pattern was unmistakable, the same pulse, faint but deliberate, returning to its origin. Inside that rhythm, computers decoded one final line of text: Cycle 2 awaits confirmation. No one knew what it meant. The signal vanished into the void. But in the polar night, the ice still shimmered with quiet light, each pulse matching the heartbeat of the world. Humanity had survived the first conversation with its own planet, and the universe had just replied.